Hey everybody, thanks for joining. And so I hope you have your pad and pen and everything ready, and hopefully have some questions and different things that we can actually talk about and maybe get a little more clarity on if something comes up for you. So let me share the screen and let's get this puppy going. All right, so we are in week number 9. We're going through the realization process. Remember, we've already gone through the awakening and transformation. Now it really comes down to realizing what it is, what our value-centered must-haves and different things that we've been talking about throughout the week. So we're going to have a little bit of fun, going to challenge some of the beliefs, because now this is when it gets real. This is when you become the creator of your reality. I say this all the time, and a couple of things you're going to hear me repeat back and forth. But the bottom line is that we come up with a lot of reasons, excuses, and different things for why our lives may be the way they are. The truth of the matter is that we are the creator of our own reality. We're responsible. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about the inner conversation. We're going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that conversation. And then the actions that we take, aligned, inspired actions that we take. And that's what we're going to be covering tonight. So you are the creator of your reality. And as you can see from the graphic, it's all in our heads. For some of us, we don't believe that we talk to ourselves, but we never stop. We never stop talking to ourselves. Even in our sleep, we are going deep into the subconscious mind. So when we talk about the decision-making process, people love to make decisions, but most of the decisions are not what I would call either radical or committed. And radical, as you'll see later on as we go, is really meant to be extreme. And why do I say the decision has to be extreme? Because we make so many ordinary decisions, and those ordinary decisions sometimes are not based in a strong enough reason. And we talk about why all the time, but not based in a strong enough reason to get us to do what we haven't done before. And this is what I like to talk about. I like to talk about committed decisions, decisions that you do not waver on, because the decisions that there are no excuses for. Because actually, when you understand that, you'll know that true growth can only happen, right? Because your mind works at the level of commitment, right? For you to carry out those decisions. And what's so interesting is the battle of the minds begin with the simplest daily choices and new habits that you want to commit to, right? So people who know me have known me for years, they don't even question whether they're going to see me or am I going to work out, right? Because that is not a question, that's not even a choice. Why? Because it's a decision, a committed decision that I made many, many years ago that now is just a habit that doesn't change. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about that. But we're also going to weave in tonight, as you know, for those of you who are with Jump, we're gonna weave in the new you in 22 days, and how does the mind play a part? So for those of you who have committed to the new you in 22, I'm going to ask you, what is your level of commitment, right? What is your real level of commitment? And you know what's so interesting is that we'll find out the real level in a few days, not in day 1 or day 2 sometimes, because those are generally the easiest days, sometimes the hardest, but they're when we're the most committed, right? And then really looking at what actions have you taken along the way? What actions have you taken so far to prepare? And what are your daily commitments? The thing that I loved how watching the community, how it's growing with the recipes and different things and the way people are supporting each other and committing to each other. I just absolutely blows me away, just brings so much joy to my heart to see that, because I believe that is the way that things start to change. So what happens as you make this commitment to a new you in 22, right? So we got a new you in 22, but are we going to get some obstacles along the way? Absolutely. So we're going to talk about some obstacles and some solutions, and then we're going to talk about how to go a little deeper in that, because the things that I'm talking about are things you already know. I'm not telling you anything today that you don't know. but I want to remind you, so we put them into action. So like one of the first things I love talking about with people, especially those who are in the new youth for 22, is like if you're at your home, if you're home now, I know that by this time you started, you're on day 1, day 2, that you have already cleaned out your pantry. You've already took all the crap out of your pantry. You've already taken all the junk out of the refrigerator, and you are now filled with everything that is good for you and nutritious, right? So the obstacle is the stuff that we hold on to, the pantry, the things that are in the back of the closet that we put there, we leave there with that. We like to call it that just in case, right? Just in case I need it, right? The solution is that we clean it out. And we're going to go deeper into solutions in a minute, right? And then what's another obstacle? Unresolved pain, right? So most of the time when we look to, if we're going off of our meal plan or we're making decisions that are not really good for us, if we have addiction issues and we're doing something, we're going against our day at a time, whatever it may be, right? Unresolved pain. It also goes with that major void, right? We're trying to fill this hole that we feel in our gut. And generally we can fill that void with something that we may be addicted to. We can fill that void with food. Many of us choose to use food. Some say that, hey, they have to have their 2 glasses of wine at night, whatever it may be, right? But when you have that void, what I found that has worked for me is that I fill the void with purpose. Like, what is the purpose of my life? Why am I here? And are my actions moving me closer or taking me further away? Right? So, and filling that void. So I want to fill that hole because that hole is dangerous, right? And we talk about reliving the past. And again, so you want to stay in the present moment. I know for us that's challenging because we're so busy looking at yesterday. And it's one of the things that really annoy me sometimes about this business, because I hear everyone keep talking about what they used to be and what they used to do and how it used to be and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? They ain't got diddly squat to do with today, right? So we got to be in the present moment to produce the results that we want to produce today, right? Family members, I don't know about you, but I have some family members that I love, but God knows they stretch me to no end, right? So that's when I have to stay connected to my values. I have to stay connected to doing my best to live without judgment, but it's definitely a challenge. Relationships, committed relationships, married relationships, significant others. I say, you know what, when we get to a place where we truly can create what I like to call divine partnerships, that's when you have something that's really unique and different that's supporting each other. I love this. This is the fun one for all of us on this call. I don't know if any of you who know people who claim that they don't have enough money. And I say it's really simple. If you don't have enough money and then you jump, it's real simple. Just build your business, right? And so then we look at, okay, you say, Randy, just build your business, but I have all these obstacles in my way. Well, the obstacles in your way are in your mind. That's how we talk about the business. The biggest obstacles in our lives are the barriers our mind creates, right? Single mom, single dad, embrace your children. I mean, because it's an interesting journey, but it doesn't have to be an obstacle. You can actually be a powerful example of possibility and show the children what's possible based on what you do. And I love this when I talked to somebody the other day and they was telling me about how they had no one to talk to about the business. And I happened to be on the phone with Neil, and we were having a conversation. And he reminded me, it had me cracking up. He said, man, just go through the contact list on your phone. Contact list on your phone. You got hundreds and hundreds of people just on your phone alone. So there's always people for us to talk to. Here's what's so interesting is that we get to look at what goes on in our mind when we choose not to. When we choose not to take the necessary actions to have a new you in 22. And that new you in 22 can be about just physical, but it can also be about, especially with Jump to Health right now, it can also be about changing the financial. So if there is something going on about money, right now you have it within your power to make that change, right? So let's talk about how this happens and how we make this change. In order to really understand and go through that, right, we have to understand how the mind works. And like I talk about, we're always talking to ourselves. Right? As I'm talking to you, your brain is in 20, 30 different places. Some of you are walking around doing something different, doing multitasking, doing all kinds of things, and glad that it's a webinar so you don't have to sit still. We're always busy doing something, moving, doing, the communication with our brain is always constant and consistent. So here's what we want to do. If we understand that, then it's really getting to a point to how do I monitor that? How do I really start to take control of that so I'm not just blowing in the wind, right? So the thoughts that we have produce emotions and feelings. So when you feel depressed or you feel down or you get angry, I don't know how many of you may have ever been driving a car and somebody cut you off and you got so pissed off, blow the horn and get upset, whatever. And then when you really stop and think about it, like why would it produce that kind of emotion? Right? What's going on inside of me that this rage just comes up because somebody got in front of me, right? So when we take a moment to think about it, it makes no sense. But in that moment, as it happens, it's what it reminds us of, and not just what it reminds us of. It's truly what it comes down to is what we make it mean. See, some of us make it mean, oh, you've been disrespected me. How can you do this? And blah, 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 blah. Right? So that's all the stuff that we make up. Right? The mind determines our daily choices by the questions that we ask ourselves. Right? So like I go to the gym all the time and people say, well, you know what? I almost didn't make it. And the questions that they ask themselves, but once I got here, it was okay. Right? Once I got here. This is why our daily choices are so incredibly important. And we pay attention to the questions that we ask ourselves because the mind develops or destroys our habits. It's our choice. Everything we have or don't have is a result of what we've been thinking about and what we allow our minds to do, right? So the mind stops you, absolutely will stop you from doing what you love. But guess what? The mind will also allow you to do exactly what you love plus some. The only difference is what we do. Let me give you an example of something funny that I always talk about, especially when it comes to a new you in 22. So I don't know how many of you have ever been out to dinner, been out and you've been on a really cool, I don't like the word diet, but let's say you've been on a real diet and you've been staying away from sugar and you're doing all that, but you're out with some friends and hanging out, having dinner, and you're at maybe like a place like the Cheesecake Factory or someplace that has like the best desserts in the world on the planet. And you're sitting around and everybody's having a conversation and all of a sudden the dessert tray comes, right? And your brain, right? And I don't know if you ever had this happen, but the brain starts to work. So the brain can go in a direction of saying, well, man, you've been so good all week. You've done amazing things. You worked out every day. So you know what? Maybe I'll just have this piece of dessert. And then your friend, your best bud, right? Says, hey man, let's split this cake, right? Let's just split it. You have half and I have half. And all of a sudden your brain, you say to yourself, wow, that sounds like a really good idea, right? And these are the conversations you're having with yourself. And you say, yes, I deserve this cake. This is good for me. It's good for my body. I need it, right? I deserve it. So you get the cake and you start to eat it and it tastes so good and you get almost to the end. And then it's funny, that same voice comes back at your head and that same voice starts to tell you how weak you are. I can't believe you ate this garbage because your stomach is starting to turn because you're feeling the difference of you haven't had sugar in your body in a while. All of a sudden the sugar is attacking your body and your head's getting rushed and all of a sudden the conversation that you're having in your head is totally different. Well, here's what's so interesting. It's the same damn voice. You see, so it seems like a really silly example, but this is the stuff we want to pay attention to is what are the conversations we're having with ourselves inside of our heads and who are we surrounded by, our friends who help us, right? So let's talk about some subconscious and conscious patterns. And I know many of you have heard of or been around someone we talk about the monkey mind, right? The mind is moving in so many different directions. You know, they have so many different studies now on multitasking and so forth and so on, how ineffective that actually is. And even though we do believe that it's effective, right? But the monkey mind, you're always thinking, you're moving, you're doing so many different things at different times, right? So what does the monkey mind produce? It produces a lot of chaos, right? A lot of chaos, a lack of emotional control. We become reactive. What we really want to look at is how do we get an inner fit mind, right? And how do we get an inner fit mind? And you see the diagram between the two, right? And we've used this diagram. I use it all the time. It's our thoughts, our inner voice, our beliefs, our values, our habits, our behavior, right? That's how we control. That's how we take control of our mind. And then we have the clarity. So instead of having emotional lapses, we become present with our emotions. It's not that we don't have them, we become present with them. We learn to ask questions of them, but really gentle questions like, why is this happening? What's going on? What does this remind me of? Right? Without judgment. So instead of being reactive, we become proactive. Instead of being ego driven, we become value driven. Right? Sometimes we get so concerned with how other people see us or think about us that we lose sight of our own values. We come with what I should do, and it's not about what you should do, it's what you will do. Right? So it's two little words, but they make all the difference in the world. So instead of constant conflict with the monkey mind, we want to have peace of mind because we're balanced, right? So a fear-based life, which is based on what could happen, or do you want to have a faith-based life, knowing that you create your destiny? Right? And so here's what's so interesting, because the monkey mind will stop you point blank from fulfilling your purpose. The innofit mind, though, when you really truly start to live and do some of the things, and I don't know how many of you are, I so appreciate the fact that you keep showing up every week. So that gives me a clue that you're doing the work. But when we really, truly, really settle down and really start to control our inner conversations and do the work necessary, that's how we start to create the change for that innofit mind. And this stuff is simple. Again, I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but what I'm asking you to do is for all of us to practice this, right? So if we want to practice this, we got to rewrite the script, right? We really got to rewrite the script. And for some of you have done this amazing exercise that you sent to me, and I want you to just go back and review the aligned versus not aligned exercise and just really review that. Because we want to talk about, this is one of the most critical pieces to this exercise that we're doing, or to this piece, is really having the ability to reframe. And the faster you can reframe and change your words, you will change your life, right? So again, how many times have you heard me say that we would not allow someone to talk to us like we talk to ourselves? Right? As you see from that graphic, right? I can't do it. I'm not worthy. I must be perfect. Nobody loves me. I'm not good enough. I must not make a mistake, on and on and on. We've been conditioned that way from childhood, right? So what I want you to do is continue to write down and monitor those not aligned thoughts, but become really quick, become really fast at recognizing them without being angry and going into the act. Acknowledge, challenge, and transform. Acknowledge it. Hey, you know what? Check this out. Why am I thinking this? Why am I thinking I'm not good enough? Right? Why am I afraid to pick up the phone to call this person to talk to them about what I'm doing? Right? What is it that where's this fear coming from? Right? So you want to acknowledge it, then you want to challenge it. Like, what am I afraid of? Why? Why would I be afraid? I'm just having a conversation. I'm just going to share my story. I'm not going to try to convince anybody to do anything. I'm just going to share my story and and ask questions and listen. Transform those negative thoughts, right? So instead of looking for the worst, we want to look for the best. We really want to look for the best. And the biggest thing I can share with you, and next week we're going to talk about how to go from self-betrayal to self-realization, because it's a powerful, powerful journey between self-betrayal and self-realization, because most of the time in our own lives, it's nobody's fault. And I'm not saying that we're going to blame ourselves, right? But it's our own betrayal that we do to ourselves by trying to fit in and not doing the things that we are designed to do. So we want to reframe all the self-criticism. We want to go from I can't to I will, to I'm really bad at this, to I'm getting better every day, I'm unlovable, I'm reaching out to new connections. And my favorite, right? I am overweight, right? How many of us look in the mirror and we're not satisfied with what we see, right? And so to reframe that self-criticism into I'm managing my weight on a consistent basis. Right? We want to become an expert, truly want to become an expert on reframing. So when you see it and you feel it, and sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, it is so ingrained and it's so locked into the subconscious, you really got to be still long enough to say, wow, why am I feeling this way? Because you could be talking to yourself and not even realize what you're saying to yourself until you check in with how you're feeling. And if you're not jumping for joy and feeling good and filled with gratitude, then it may be something that you're saying to yourself that you want to take a look at. right? So again, radical compassion. So this is where we come down to start looking at what can we do? What kinds of things start to happen? And again, we talked about radical in the very beginning, radical extreme measures, right? Extreme compassion for ourselves. It's one of the things that we don't do very well. We take the sticks out, we take the bats out. And this is why I love this little graphic here. Treat yourself as you would a friend, a good friend, somebody you care about, somebody you love. You probably wouldn't talk to them at times like you talk to yourself. So you want to clear your past history, right? You want to clear that past history. You want to release yourself from the mistakes, all the mistakes that I've made, all of the things that I've done. And I had this conversation with myself late last night. Everything that I've done, right? I have to realize it and come and have real peace with that all those things had to happen in order for me to create and live my life exactly as I want to live it today, right? So if I can look at that and see that for what it truly is, right? Because everything that's happened is truly just a lesson. And we talk about these things and they sound really good and they sound really cute. But the bottom line comes down to is that when you can apply them, when you can live them. And here's something that I use all the time for myself, because there are times when I allow my negative or past events or past what I used to perceive as failures that come up for me, right? And they'll bring up emotions that I really want to run from. And then I have to ask myself, when those negative past events come up now, that I can look back and see the mistakes and different things that I did and things that I knew that I shouldn't have done, but I did anyway. And then so I ask myself a simple question. I say, Randy, knowing what you know today, would you make the same choices? And I'm like, hell no. Knowing what I know today, I wouldn't make the same choices. And when I do that, I could say, okay, you can forgive yourself because now you know more, right? So when you know more, you do more, you can do better, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, then I can release that. So that's why I'm always asking myself, knowing what I know today, would I make those same choices, right? Because a lot of times we may think that something in our life is going to be the most fantastic thing in the world, right? How many of you know people that when they got married, they were so happy, couldn't wait. It was going to be this wonderful, loving experience. And just a few short years later, it was a totally different experience, right? So when we're looking at having compassion for ourselves, here's what I'd love for you to be able to do is just slow down a little bit. Slow down the process of what's going on in your head by writing down, right? Connect, whether you want to write it down, whether you want to record it. What you want to start doing is hearing yourself reframe your story, hearing yourself. And I'm not just talking about affirmations. I'm talking about really just hearing yourself reframe the story, telling the truth about who you are, because the truth about us is that we're great. The truth about us, especially the people that we get to work with and be with, are fantastic, wonderful, caring, giving, kind, loving people, right? So if we can start to really see and hear ourselves doing that, that's what makes all the difference in the world, right? And so I love to talk about respond to the mind with love and gratitude. I used to respond to my mind with an attitude, not love and gratitude, because I'd be so pissed off, right? And what I had to really come to terms with is that I had to have extreme self-compassion, that I had to have the same compassion for me that I would have for the people that I loved and the people that I'm coaching, and the kind of magnitude and latitude that I would have with them, to have that with myself, and to absolutely positively refuse to be angry or disappointed in myself, right? Because if I understand that everything I'm doing is a lesson, all of us on this call, all of us that are listening today, we've all done what I like to, well, I won't say this, so I'll try to be nice. We've all done some silly things, right? And those things that we've done, we look back on and we can say, man, boy, I could have done them different. And if we can do that without the judgment or without the anger or without the disappointment, makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so we're coming close to the end of our session for today. We have a lot. I know we're going through a lot, and we had a lot to cover. But here's something for me that I talked about today. Me and Tara actually spent a lot of time talking about today, the power of detachment, right? So, and sometimes, so hear me with this, because sometimes this can be challenging and create a conflict in your mind, because we talk about our value-centered must-haves, right? And so it's really being able to focus on those values centered must have, but also not being attached to them as a reason for your happiness or a reason for your joy, right? It's not that we're not focused on them, but we don't have to be attached to them. Being attached to them, like it's almost like we make it seem like these things make us who we are, right? So what we want to really do when we want to detach, man, and I'm telling you, this was a lesson for me today from last night to today that I had to really get, and something that really changed and shifted for me, shifted everything within me from what I was feeling to what I'm feeling today. It made a huge difference when I really got to the power of detachment. And that comes down to disconnecting from the ideas that limit you, right? So there's ideas, there's things in our past that limit us, right? Because we hold ourselves to standards that just make no sense, right? So when we can detach from those ideas, right, and start to really create from a new place. And again, I'm going to say this one more time. I know I am not telling you anything you don't already know. What I am requesting and what I am inviting you to do is to start to see it and to start to live it, start to practice it, and start to, now that you're building your community and a new you for 22, right? So take these ideas, take these things on for 22 days. Commit to changing your level of wealth, commit to changing your body, commit to it all in 22 days, knowing that you now have tools in front of you that you can use to do it. Protect your mind from the influence of negative people, right? Do not entertain them. I can't tell you the number of people that get pissed off at me because I walk away, right? When people want to tell me, even today, it was so funny. I'm sitting in the gym, somebody wanted to tell me today how horrible it was with now we have to wear masks and now we have to do this and blah, 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 blah. And I just say, hey, man, you know what? That's not me. I'm out, right? And I just walk away, went to another piece of equipment because I am not going to sit back and entertain and listen to all the negativity, right? It's not important. It is what it is. What I do is what I do. I don't need to get into all of the negativity about it. What I need to do is find what's positive about it for me and what makes it work for me instead of going against something that I can't change. There's nothing I can do about it, right? Open your mind to new possibilities, right? So one of the things that I love about, especially if you're building direct sales and you're building a network marketing business, right? It's really about being open to new possibilities, not being locked into the same old thing. Sometimes we talk about all the experience and all the stuff that we have and all the things that we've done. Well, you know what? If all those things that we've done work so damn well, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today. So let's look at what new possibilities are available for us. Let's look at what new conversations that we can have. Let's look at how we can go about building a business today, unlike how we may have done it in the past. How do we create new, exciting things that people get truly, truly buzzed about and want to be a part of, right? How do we do that? And what's so interesting is I'm finding and looking as I look in the new you for 22 community, it's like so cool to see some of the different things and the level of support that people are giving to each other. I'm like, okay, so those are the kinds of things that make a difference. Being open and opening your mind to new possibilities. Now, this is my damn favorite right here. Nothing owns you. Detachment is not that you own nothing, it's nothing owns you, right? Because the biggest mistake that I made is being attached, thinking that I'm part of something, thinking that I own something, thinking that I'm part of something that I'm not really a part of. And being able to detach from that feeling, being able to detach from that, it gives me the freedom to know that nothing owns me, right? That I get to create my own destiny, right? That I am not owned. I don't have to be attached. But when you're attached to something, to things, to people, to places or things or events around us, and we start to believe that that's who we are, right? So how many of us have had conversations and the first thing we ask somebody is, what do you do, right? What do you do? What do you think would happen if you start to ask them, what are you passionate about? What's your purpose? Man, what really fires you up? What makes you happy? But no, we want to know what you do. And why do we want to know what you do? So we can judge it. So we can think we know who you are based on what you do. And that's all, in my opinion, BS, right? So this is something I've been doing for years. When I ask people, and I can be walking around the grocery store, I say, hey, man, what are you passionate about today? What's going on? All right. And sometimes people just look at you like you're a little off. But the bottom line is that when nothing owns you, it makes a huge difference in your world because it's not like we don't have things and it's not like we don't care. It's just that none of those things make us who we are. So I love to use the AVAR process on detachment, right? And the AVAR process on detachment, number one is the awareness of the attachment. So what am I attached to? What is my ego attaching me to? Where is my ego telling me that I am more than what I am? Where's my ego telling me that I need to have an opinion about something? Where is that coming from? What am I attached to? What's making me upset? Why am I having these emotional reactions to things and to people? Well, the reason I'm having those emotional reactions is because I'm attached to something. I'm attached to something that I may not need to be attached to, that I may need to let go of, right? And so then we look at the V, visualize. Visualize letting go of the attachment. It's like something happens. This freedom comes about. This freedom comes about when you can see letting go of it. It's almost like as you can visualize, wow, this doesn't make me, right? I can reframe what I desire. And so when I look at my desire is to serve. My desire is that maybe as we're going through these weeks, that maybe one person gets something that changes where they go or what they do or how they do, something that we talk about, something that we communicate together that allows a vision of your life, a vision of who you are, a vision of all the greatness that's within you, that now this can start to shine. All right. When we look at a new you in 22 days, all of us on this call could literally have a totally different life depending on what we put into it, depending on what we feed our brains, right? Depending on what we let go of, so we can allow some new, great, crazy, wonderful, fantastic things to come in, right? And this is where the other A, aligned action, right? So it's like making sure that they're, that you're detached from having stuff in your pantry that you don't need, right? And taking the necessary actions so we don't put things in our way, right? We don't put things in our way. We don't allow ourselves to go down these rabbit holes. Especially when it comes to aligned action, I'm going to speed this up a little bit, but one of the things that I noticed, which is so interesting, I love the community, New You in 22. But what's also pretty interesting is I watched too how people use social media, and they use social media because it makes them feel like they're doing something, right? So we can get on social media, and then what happens, right? If we're not careful, we can go down these rabbit holes. And then all of a sudden, somebody's reaction, or somebody didn't like something, or somebody said something, and all of a sudden you're emotionally into all this stuff that you weren't in the moment before you decided to check your social media post and see what's going on, right? So I just say, to be careful that you don't put yourself down a rabbit hole, that you don't fool yourself with, oh, I'm working today, because you spend 4 hours going through Instagram, or you've been, going through Facebook. It really comes down to what actions are you taking? Are you taking the actions that's going to bring a new you in 22? Are the actions you're taking bringing you to that or taking you away from it? And if you just ask those questions, right, you'll be surprised at what you'll find. And then the R, responsible for releasing yourself, right? Nobody else is responsible. Nobody's responsible for my emotional reactions but me. So I get to control them. I get to say, you know what, I gotta go because I can tell when my emotional reactions are going to not serve me, right? And there's nothing that I dislike more than having to apologize. So I do my best not to put myself in those situations. I'm responsible for releasing myself of that. And so I want you to get prepared for any questions as we close. And I like to call this mind maintenance, right? And this is mind maintenance, from wants to expectations, conscious choice of mind. So what we want to do, ladies and gentlemen, point blank, is just sort out the voices in our head, because we're always talking to ourselves. We're always talking to ourselves. So let's pay attention to what are we saying. Are we saying it from our true selves, as you see on the graphic, or are we saying it from our ego self, right? Are we saying it from our expectations, or are we saying it from our wants, right? So we want to identify the inner conflicts, because again, it's the same voice. It's going to produce whatever result you want it to produce. It's going to produce giving you exactly what you want plus some, or it's going to produce you not having enough, right? It's just really truly comes down to the choices that we make. And again, for the fifth or sixth time, right? I know these are things you already know, but the question comes down to, are we utilizing them? Are we taking this knowledge and really doing something with it? Are we transforming the monkey mind to the infant mind? Are we taking just a few minutes a day, 30 seconds, a minute, to just sit still and allow your brain to calm down and focus in on an infant mind and what you really want to accomplish, who you want to talk to, visualize the conversation, right? Really think about, your new you in 22, and you start to see that coming to fruition for yourself. Also, you want to pay attention to how you are feeling. Pay attention to how you're feeling, because sometimes the mind, and we have so much stuff locked into our subconscious. We have so much stuff locked into our subconscious. If we don't pay attention to how we feel, we won't even know that we've been triggered. And that's what we want to look out for. We want to look out for those negative triggers, the negative people, the negative events, the frosted flakes in the pantry, the stuff that we say we have to have for the kids, whatever it is that's going to trigger you into an emotional turmoil, that's going to allow the monkey mind to get going. You want to look out for those things, be prepared for those things. And above all, monitor the internal conversations, because it's those internal conversations that will determine our external results. So who we become, what we do, how we come about doing it is a direct result of the internal conversations that we have for ourselves. So wrapping all of this up, I just want you to know that everything that you truly desire, you already have. It's already within you. It's just the conversations that we're having with ourselves, or whether they manifest. Because I'm amazed at just watching over the last couple of days how things and people's energies have changed, right? When they allow themselves to be excited and enthused about something, all of a sudden the results and different things that they wanted in their lives started to become different. So the ability was always there. You just had to access it. So you want to access it for yourself and really assist your team and the people that you're working with. See the greatness within them, because as you see the greatness within them, they'll see it within you. And then we'll create a circle of love and a circle of production that you haven't seen before. So that's pretty much what we're going to cover for this week. So Tara, I want to open it up for any questions or anything of that nature that if anybody wants to add something, join something, say something, bring something to the table, ask any questions whatsoever. The floor is now yours.
Okay, Stephanie, I am allowing you to talk. Make sure you unmute yourself.
Okay.
Great, we can hear you. Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you. Hey, Randy. So I'm in the beta group as well. Today was fantastic. And then my boss came in and he was just like really indifferent. I had busted my ass in this house. I'm a live-in companion, and I busted my ass cleaning and everything before I left to exercise. And he didn't even acknowledge it.
Understand?
That just totally, I don't know. I got really upset, and the poor me's and the bad thoughts and everything just came in immediately.
Okay, awesome. That is good news. Okay, Stephanie, that's good news, because what that means is that you now have the opportunity to shift that, right? So, and what we get to look at, Stephanie, and this sometimes is challenging, but here's what we get to look at. We get to look at, why am I making someone else's opinion or someone else not recognizing me important? Because the bottom line is that you do what you do for you, because you want to be of service to the people that you're working with, right? So that's important to you. So you want to continue to satisfy you and truly get yourself in a place where you're not allowing or not having someone else's opinion or thought about you or what you're doing be that important. So I understand that. And I just want to say to you, congratulations for recognizing it. Now you can challenge it and you can transform it into what you want it to be. So that's wonderful.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, Randy, at this time, I don't see any more hands up. Doesn't mean there won't be one being raised soon.
Okay.
And I was just going to add on to one of the things you and I have laughed and talk about it with regards to our mind. I go out walking around the lake where I live, and when my mind is almost like, oh, now that I've got your attention, and it starts racing off, and it's like I have to stop and go, no, not at this time. This is my personal time. Literally will have those conversations with myself. Yes. And I just was sharing that with people because it's like we have to be vigilant yes. with our minds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It will take over. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to share some things and evaluate, but I guess everybody has what they need. So we can say goodnight. All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Really appreciate it. Take care and have an awesome night.